Hello, today we are going to be focusing on linear inequalities. Specifically, we would be considering the symbols and the rules. First, let's talk about the inequality symbols. The first is the greater than. This is the greater than, less than. Now, this is greater or equal to. The next is the less than or equal to. We've got the very common one, the equal sign. We can also extend the symbols to not greater than. Okay, so we also have not less than, and finally, not equal to. So these are the inequality symbols. The next thing we are going to consider here would be the inequality rules. We've got a number of rules. These are the rules guiding the operations on inequality. Please come with me. Here are the rules. The first rule goes thus: an inequality is preserved if a fixed quantity is either added or subtracted from both sides of it. The second one, an inequality is preserved if a fixed positive quantity either multiplies or divides both sides of it. And the final rule, an inequality is reversed if a fixed negative quantity either multiplies or divides both sides of it. So we find that the first two rules deals with preservation, while the last one witnesses a reversal. Let's see how these rules work. Okay, so invariably, the first rule says that if A is less than B, then if a fixed quantity is either added or subtracted from both sides, there's going to be preservation of the inequality. Now, to make it so very easy for us, let's use numbers, what we can always relate with. So the first rule, we are going to let A to be equal to 2 and B to be equal to 3. We all know that, so it's so obvious that 2 is less than 3. Now, if I decide to add a fixed positive quantity to both sides, so let's pick 5. So I've got 2 and 3. Now I have no idea what's going to happen here. So if I decide to add 5 to both sides of this inequality, so I'm going to get 7 on the left and 8 on the right. So it's so obvious that the inequality is preserved. 7 is still less than 8. If I had subtracted 5 from both sides, I'm sure the inequality is still going to be preserved, because I'm going to be having 2 minus 5 on the left and 3 minus 5 on the right. 2 minus 5 is a negative 3. 3 minus 5 is a negative 2. And of course, a negative 3 is still less than negative 2. So this shows that an inequality is always going to be preserved if a fixed quantity is either added or subtracted from both sides of it. Let's see if the same holds in the second one. What happens if a fixed positive quantity is multiplied or divided from both sides of an inequality? Okay, so let's check out the second one. We are still going to be using 2 and 3. We all know that 2 is less than 3. Now, if we multiply both sides of this inequality by a fixed positive quantity, the number has to be positive. Let's see what happens. Let's still use 5. So this is going to be 2 times 5. We want to see what happens to the sign. So I'm also going to have 3 times 5 here. 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 5 is 15. And of course, we can see that 10 is still less than 15. All right. Now, if I chose to divide both sides by 5, so here I'm still going to have we have 0.4, 0.6, and so we can see that 0.4 is still less than 0.6. So multiplying or dividing both sides by a fixed positive quantity also preserves the inequality. So let's see what happens here. We've used 2 and 3 twice, so let's just switch to some other numbers. Let's pick 150. Okay, so clearly 100 is greater than 50. Let's see what happens if we multiply both sides by a fixed negative quantity. A -1, for example, is a fixed negative quantity. So let's multiply both sides by a -1 and see what happens to the sign, and 50 times a -1. So 100 times -1 is -100. 50 times -1 is -50. And of course, it's so obvious that -100 is less than -50. Can we see the reversal here? So multiplying both sides of an inequality by a fixed negative number would reverse the inequality. Let's see what happens when we divide. Okay, so we are still going to divide both sides by a -1 and see what happens. So this is going to be 100 divided by -1, then 50 divided by -1. So here we know that this is a positive 100, this is positive 50. Positive divided by negative is negative. 100 divided by 1 is 100. Similarly, plus 50 divided by minus 1 is minus 50. So it's so obvious that here -100 is less than -50. So we can see that multiplying or dividing both sides for an inequality by a fixed negative quantity reverses the inequality. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, kindly like, subscribe, and share it. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.